The Philippines and South Korea have a long history of very close bilateral relations. The relationship is defined by Seoul's gratitude towards the Philippines for the latter's generosity during the Korean War. The Philippines was only the fifth nation to recognize the Republic of Korea. Further, during the Korean War, the deployment of the Philippine Expeditionary Force to Korea, or the PEFTOK, helped South Korea avert an invasion by North Korea. Ever since then, South Korea has remained close to Manila while acknowledging how the Philippines helped it when the chips were down. However, today, it is South Korea's time to return the favor. The Philippines is facing a lot of pressure due to Chinese belligerence, and Seoul is going to arm it sufficiently so that the Southeast Asian nation can take on China. Hi and welcome to TFI Global, the foreign affairs and geopolitical analysis arm of the TFI Media Group. I am your host Shubhangi, and in this video I will explain how and why South Korea is selling weapons to China's bête noire, the Philippines. Let's begin. Last year, the Quad suddenly shot into the limelight as an informal security forum to take on China. The Informal Security Forum was established several years ago, but it has gained a lot more significance over the recent past due to the general resentment against China within the free world. All US allies in the Indo-Pacific, like Vietnam and Taiwan, have started working against China. The only exception, however, was South Korea, which has not attempted to decouple from China. South Korean President Moon Jae-in is a pro-China leader, which explains Seoul's reticence in not going after China. Yet South Korea seems to be finally aligning with the larger vision of US allies in the region by selling weapon systems and military equipment to the Philippines. The Philippines, which shares some contentious South China Sea disputes with Beijing, is about to receive several weapon systems and military equipment from Seoul. A group of Philippine military and defense officials visited South Korea earlier this month to inspect rocket systems and an anti-submarine warship presently used by the South Korean armed forces. Representatives of the Philippine Navy also visited the Jenai Naval Base in South Korea, where they examined the Pohang-class corvette ROKS Andong, or the PCC-771, a decommissioned South Korean warship. If the transfer takes place, it will be the second such corvette to be donated to the Philippines by South Korea. The Philippines is also expected to receive additional equipment and ammunition from Seoul in the next few months, in addition to military vessels and rocket systems. The weapons transfers from South Korea to the Philippines are solely aimed at bolstering the Philippine military forces against China. Manila faces maritime security challenges due to issues like the West Philippine Sea dispute and intrusion of Chinese ships into Philippine waters. Now, acquiring South Korean vessels will allow Manila to deploy vessels and actively patrol its maritime territory, especially at a time when the Philippine Navy is decommissioning at least 7 ships due to maintenance costs. The Philippine Navy is reportedly going to retire aging vessels like the BRP Miguel Malvar, BRP Magat Salamat, and BRP Manyan. Philippine Fleet Commander Rear Admiral Lamor Bernabe explained that such aging ships are down for maintenance most of the time, which reduces efficiency and hikes maintenance costs. He suggested that the excess maintenance funds could be devoted to acquiring new and more efficient platforms. Bernabe added, "We need to phase out these vintage and World War II vessels whose average age ranges from 40 to 50 years old. The vessel's spare and repair parts are obsolete and not economical to maintain." Both the Philippines and South Korea stand at a similar point in their internal politics and China relations. Seoul and Manila face a permanent threat from Chinese expansionism. However, South Korean President Moon Jae-in and Philippines President Rodrigo Duterte has hardly the kind of China hawks who can push back against Beijing's intimidation tactics. Moon Jae-in in particular has been at the center of criticism over policies and decisions like the establishment of a massive South Korean chip plant in China. Moon's policies, however, were not in sync with local sentiment. Sisa In, A current affairs magazine and pollster Hankook Research revealed survey results in June that showed a deterioration in South Korean public attitude towards China, particularly among the youth. Only 26% of respondents felt positive about China, compared to 57% who felt positively about the United States. With 28%, even South Korea's traditional foe Japan came out ahead of China. Also, both the Philippines and South Korea face elections next year. Again, both Duterte and Moon Jae-in aren't going to contest the 2022 polls due to term limits in their respective countries. Yet, there are China hawks in both the countries who threaten to derail Duterte's PDB Laban in the Philippines and Moon's Democratic Party in Korea. Harvard-educated Lee Jun-suk, a 36-year-old China hawk, is leading the conservative People Power Party of South Korea. He is banking on greater appeal with the youth and anti-China policies to clinch a victory in the elections next year. In the case of the Philippines, the China factor became evident recently when Manny Pacquiao, the ambitious boxer turned politician, was voted out of the party after he criticized President Rodrigo Duterte's dovish China policy. Days after he was ousted from the ruling party, Pacquiao announced his presidential run, sending shivers down the spine of the communist rulers in China. For Moon, the increasing resentment against China and the rise of a China hawk in the opposition ranks became too hard to bear. He had to do something to show that he is not China's friend, and he has chosen to arm the Philippines with proving his credentials as an opponent to Chinese expansionism. In the process, South Korea is finally coming in line with the larger Indo-Pacific policy of pushing back against China.